Ben Pauling's climb up the jump racing tree has been one of the great success stories of British racing over the last 10 or 12 years. In the 2024-25 season, a link-up full-time with jockey Ben Jones proved particularly lucrative, and the two Bens have regularly topped the bill on some of the biggest days, becoming the most formidable of partnerships. And as we go into the core 2025-26 season, there is surely no more exciting operation in Britain than the one here. Great time of the year this, isn't it? Nothing's really gone wrong, and lots of dreams and excitement with the months ahead.
Yeah, it's lovely. Sat here in the September sun with it all ahead of us and a lovely bunch of horses in the stables. We know there's an awful lot of humps in the road to come, but at this present moment in time we couldn't be more excited about what we've got ahead.
And when you look around the stable, what do you think about where you are at the moment?
I think since we moved to this yard, it's been a transformation in Ben Pauling racing and what it can deliver.
And Ben Jones became very much part of the operation. And my goodness, it's been a good relationship that you've started.
No, it's brilliant. Ben contacted me only probably 3-4 years ago and said, I haven't got an awful lot going on, but I'll be able to come and ride out one morning. His first ride was at Aintree, and he rode Bow to Greatness to nearly win the 3-mile handicap chase. He just got beaten half a length, and I thought, yeah, you're all right. And he's taken over as first jockey last year, and it couldn't have gone much better. Ben would say that he's more patient now towards the end of a race. He would have lost a few races by probably just kicking on a little bit too early, sitting pretty till after the second last or coming to the last. You probably didn't have the class to then go and win that race. So it's all about experience, understanding the relationship that you have with the trainer, and not someone that gets upset and fractious after a race if it hasn't gone well. Of course, I'm competitive and I'm going to be a little bit frustrated, but I very rarely bring it up afterwards, and if I do, it'll be hopefully in a constructive way, because your jockey has to believe that you've got their back. The biggest monkey off our back was the Jukebox Man at Newbury when he won the John Frankham. That was the first of his graded winners for us. That was a huge relief to Ben. I was thrilled to see it come off, and it was a big moment. And he wasn't necessarily an easy ride that day. He was flamboyant and, wanted to go that gear faster the whole time, and Ben had to, ride him so he was not breaking his stride, but also not allowing him to just run away with the race too early. There was no room for error that day. He had to get his fractions bang on, and did.
We're going to see the Jukebox Man in a minute, and he's back, which is great. Look at the army that he's leading towards the core season, which is about to come up. Well, this, Ben, then is the Jukebox Man. You can always tell when a horse is really making an impression. You put out a statement when something goes wrong. And you had to put out a statement early on in the year in January.
I always find this quite amusing, actually. It's quite a interesting point, because you don't put out a statement and people tell you that you're doing it wrong because they might be backing him anti-post. Then you do put out a statement, and then people say, why on earth are you putting a statement out about a horse that's only a novice tracer? But anyway, we did such because we believe he's got a big following. He's obviously owned by Harry, brings a lot of attention his way, and he won the John Frankham as he liked, and obviously then gone on to win the Quarto Star at Christmas very, very easily. So he was a very exciting horse. He would have probably been almost certainly anti-post favourite for the Brown Advisory, or he was at the time that he got injured, and so it was a huge blow for the stable, for the yard. He's an incredibly talented horse. He's an absolute electric jumper and has hopefully a very bright future ahead of him again now. He had a stress fracture, condylar fracture on his cannon bone that was pinned at Newmarket, and he's back in full training. He's starting to really up his work now. We're, God willing, keep him sound. He should have a very bright future.
It was a real feeling of another milestone for the Ben Pauling operation. You got the odds-on favourite for a Grade 1 race at Kempton's.
Yeah, it was It was strange. It'd been 7 years since we won a Grade 1.
So what are your plans? What are your hopes for the month ahead?
The King George is our main aim, and he'll either probably start in the Paddy Power Gold Cup or the 1965 Chase at Ascot, both over 2.5 miles. I think first time out he will not need 3 miles. He'll no doubt be exuberant. He always is first time out, but we'll aim to have him ready for one of those races. And but the King George is the big aim. Go back to a track where we know he acts. And whereas Handstands might struggle with the early pace, this lad would love it if they went a million and he could just sit off them and follow them round. And the turn of foot he showed, it might not again have been the strongest renewal of the Corto Star, but the turn of foot he showed to put it to bed after 3 out was quite impressive, and he won it as he liked. Whether he's a Gold Cup horse or a Ryanair horse, I don't know, but I do think he's definitely that quality. I think a lot will depend on him and what he shows us this season in his early races. I do think he'll end up staying a Gold Cup trip, but he might just have plenty of exuberance and class.
And in the past, he got you really close at Cheltenham. And he's had this injury, so slight feeling of unfinished business.
Yes. I mean, look, if he'd run the Albert Bartlett again tomorrow, you'd probably win it. He led them a merry dance, and I think even Woodsy would say that we probably just kicked half a furlong too soon and just paid the price up the hill. But that to me in itself showed me there and then that he probably had a lot more class and speed than I first gave him credit for. And he'd be ridden differently if we were to go 3 miles again at Cheltenham.
This guy, Handstands, made a massive part of your season.
He really did. He went to Sandown and won over 3 miles of Grade 2 there, beating Resplendent Grey, which obviously went on to win the Bet365. And then the rerouted Towton at Foss Lass, he couldn't have won that any easier. And then obviously the Scilly Isles back at Sandown where he beat Django By, and I am this horse's biggest fan. I think he's incredibly talented. I think he's very, very tough. He's disappointed at 2 festivals, which people will knock him for. Cheltenham, when he was over the top as a novice hurdler, he just never really went a yard. He finished, but beaten 30 lengths. And then again, another one of ours that turned up at Aintree and was expected to do the business and just wasn't quite right. But he's a big, strong boy now. He would before, even last year, he was better, but he was still weak enough. And this year, I think he could be the real deal on a bit of dust. But I think he could be the real deal. He's a incredibly nice horse to train. A good mover, enjoys his job. And Django By went on to win the Arkle and looked every inch a 2.5 miler in the Arkle, really. He got there in the dying strides, and so I accept the fact that this lad does seem to love soft ground, so I think that probably suited us more than Django By at Sandown. But it was still, I think, will go down as we look back in the future. I think that'll be a Scilly Isles, which people will say, well, they were 2 very good horses. They pulled 15 lengths clear of Caliph de Burley that went on to win the Grade 1 at Aintree. So the form's in the book. He's a very, very, very nice horse and a joy to train.
So what might that exciting season entail?
He'll start off in the Colin Parker. And the Colin Parker was always a nice race to start horses off, and it's always competitive. And having won a Grade 1, he'll have to carry a £6 penalty, but I think it's a lovely place to start.
Carlisle, end of October, beginning of November time.
Yeah, exactly, 2nd of November. And then he'll either have to carry a lot of weight in a Coral Gold Cup or Betfair Chase. One of those two, I think, would be his second targets. And then, he might have an entry in a King George, but he doesn't strike me as a King George horse. I think in a King George he could be found wanting early doors for a bit of absolute early speed. You know, lots of horses do get caught out at Kempton. I don't necessarily think, if it was a soft ground, proper soft ground King George, I think we absolutely fine. But he'll have an entry, but we'll see what the ground's doing. Kempton's not famous for bottomless ground. So if he didn't go there, he could possibly look at the Peterborough, but I think that'll be a little bit tight on trip. He has won, obviously, the Sydney Banks over 2.5, but maybe something like the Cotswold Chase might be a better fit. But I can tell you, the week of Cheltenham last year, this horse was in the form of his life. And after that, you know, he just wasn't himself. So I can't help feeling that we missed out at Cheltenham. But we made our decision and we stuck by it. And what's the point in looking back? You know, always look to the future. So we're excited about going again. So we're not afraid of going to Cheltenham, Wade. We were just trying to look after him for the future.
You say he's a lovely horse to train. He's a lovely horse to interview as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Couldn't care less about everything. And you've got him out on his sort of veranda. They have these horses an area.
So 30 stables have outdoor pens, both sides of barn 4 and one side of barn 3. And this became Handstands box, I think, pretty much the day he arrived. And I think he's not going to move far from here. He's actually very fortunate because his pen is almost twice the size of everyone else's, but I think he deserves it.
So, dare I say, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mambonumberfive.
Yeah, no, he needs no introduction in his name, that's for sure. We like to train horses with more condition and more strength than the French do. So a horse like this would have been tall and rangy but fairly light. Well, the first thing we did is, when we got him, is we sent him to put condition on. That was all we wanted to do. And then, funnily enough, straight away he was finding it hard work to carry his extra weight. He just wasn't physically strong enough. He was a 3 rising 4-year-old. He was nearly 17 hands and probably 550, 600 kilograms. So it was just a lot for him to take. And so he was doing his work nicely and probably impressing us, but actually not having to work that hard to do it. So we went to Cheltenham. He ran in the Grade 2 Triumph Hurdle Trial in November and was free as the wind, did everything wrong, running into a lot of hurdles, and Keelan pulled him up coming down the hill. It was all turning for home. There was no point going any further. We upped his work and really got stuck into him. And we went to the Adonis at Kempton, another Grade 2, and just dropped him out last and just rode him to run nicely. And he came through it all very, very easily and won very handsomely indeed. And then he was another one that went to run in April and went to Aintree and just ran like Oswald. You know, he never once looked the horse he did at Kempton. There'll be people that say the form of the Kempton race wasn't that much. Well, maybe so, but for a horse of his size and scope to be doing that as a 4-year-old was very impressive, and I think he's going to be a fabulous chaser this year. So we're going to go chasing as a 4-year-old with a 4-year-old allowance, and look forward to seeing how he gets on. By this time last year, she had already picked up a tracheal infection. She had a dirty scope, and it took us a long time to get rid of that, probably 6-8 weeks. But she's a fabulously nice filly. She got beat first time out. I wasn't worried about that. And she went to Cheltenham second time out and won nicely. And then I made a big mistake because we spent so long getting her spot on from being unhealthy. I went and ran her on ground at Sandown that was pretty unraceable. Getting her back to where she was for Cheltenham was a great team effort, and we got her obviously nearly right or close to her best. I still don't think she was at her best, but she ran a mighty race in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle to finish third. The whole season it never flowed. I have absolute faith that this filly could be very, very good again. She's like Mambo, going to go novice chasing. She's probably good enough to start off over 2 miles and then end up over 2.5. She's a queen. We adore her, and I have every expectation that she'll show you what she's really capable of again this year.
Won a point-to-point in Ireland and ran the bumper at Ayr.
Yeah, so he's one of our dark horses to follow. He's another one of our novice hurdlers. We've, as you pointed out, already run him in a bumper. He's a particularly nice character. He's by Getaway. We've had a lot of luck with Getaways, and I think this is going to be another one of the smart ones. Obviously ran up at Ayr. It was a decent bumper, I think. Ground was quick enough. And our horses weren't actually running that well in April. I think it was just so dry, the dust everywhere was just really quite affecting them. So I think he ran incredibly well, considering probably good enough to start off over 2 and then step up as the season goes on. No, very, very pleased with him, and I think he's a potential star. He's by Poet's Word, who is fast becoming a very, very popular sire. He's done nothing but impress us since he's been here. I'm not saying he's going to be the world's best workhorse, but I've got a sneaky suspicion he's going to be a really smart racehorse. I just think for him being the size he is to have run as a 4-year-old was really quite impressive. And I think he's going to be a horse that improves massively this season for being a bit stronger. He probably 2.5 mile horse this season. There's no point running this lad in novice in bumpers. He's had his education. He's fairly sound in his mind, and I think getting going hurdling, because if he's good enough to feature in some better novice hurdles as the season goes on, I sometimes think the bumper run in sort of back end October and November almost detracts from your opportunity to get them going and get the experience over hurdles. So he's a horse that I'll be looking to run first week in November, and then probably early December, and if he's good enough, maybe find something more exciting over Christmas or New Year. Day is another Poet's Word. This was actually the winner of the first 4-year-old, or certainly one of the first 4-year-old point-to-points in Ireland last year, so he really was quite precocious. And I have a sneaky suspicion that had people known what Poet's Words were going to become, I think he might have made a little bit more money again. I mean, he again wasn't cheap, but he's in the ownership of Jeff Hill and Harry Redknapp, and we've had a lot of luck for Harry. But again, he was very, very weak last season. He's still got a lot of furnishing to do. I'd look forward to starting him off back end of October, early November, in a 2-mile National Hunt novice hurdle or something similar. I love the way these Poet's Words seem to think. You can see they're all stood here as quiet as lambs, but they've got plenty about them as well. It's nice to have one with what I believe at the moment to be a bit more of a speedy type. We quite often buy big raw chasing types that probably need a little bit further than 2 miles. This lad has got the size of scope to be a chaser in time. He'd probably be an inch smaller than some of the bigger types, and probably be a bit more athletic over a hurdle, so looking forward to seeing how he gets on.
And you've been giving Harry lots of positives on this front, have you?
Yeah, I think so. In typical Harry and Jeff fashion, they're not overly demanding in the information they need, but from what we see, we like. We probably could have run this lad in a bumper, but the ground was just too quick and I didn't want to risk him. So now we've missed that slot, it's time for him to learn his trade over hurdles.
And as you said, you've had lots of luck with Harry Redknapp in the past, so if this ended up at one of the big or several of the big spring festivals, that wouldn't be a surprise?
It wouldn't be a surprise. I think he's particularly nice when I think the form is there, and we're just looking forward to getting him out in the not too distant future.